webinars, more than 500 as of today, and we have been very successful with high participation from you all. Being a webinar, you can only listen to me. However, it is a wonderful platform for interaction and reach out to you all. Projects registered with all rating programs. In homes itself, we have got 52 fully certified and 612 are pre-certified. This is possible only due to support from you all. Before we take up queries from you, I preempt some frequently asked questions that bother in many IGBC green home projects. Over and above, we will discuss the project specific issues related to your projects. I request you to type in your questions related to your project queries, and it will be addressed during the webinar. I'll straight away start the queries. Let me see the first today's agenda. As I told you, the objective of this webinar, that is to basically to understand the project queries from you all. Then I'm going to elaborate on the key frequently asked questions, and I will take up queries from you all. First query that I'm going to raise is projects with mixed use development. How to address them? If you see this particular case, here it is very important to define a virtual site boundary. I would like to explain the case one. Projects having separate residential and commercial towers. It is advised to register them separately for green homes and commercial rating systems respectively. Projects need to indicate a virtual site boundary for the portion which is registered for IGBC green homes rating. The other commercial buildings may opt for other rating systems as applicable. However, projects having a common STP, common parking spaces, common landscape designs which are shared among entire campus can be actually considered for the calculations for the particular residential towers. Commercial spaces can also be shown for the basic amenities which the project can actually aim for. In the case 2, if the project having commercial and residential in the same tower, projects will come under IGBC green homes rating. For the entire project, it is applicable. In which case, the commercial portion can be actually shown as the amenity spaces for your projects. Even the commercial spaces should be designed to meet all the mandatory requirements as per the site, water, IEQ, energy, and so on. So this is a very important query that we normally come across. Let's see second query. Existing residential projects, which rating system is applicable and how to address? See, normally these existing residential projects can also register under our present IGBC green homes version 2. Here the point to be noted is, it is recommended to carry out a feasibility study by our consultant or architects team to verify whether the project is adhering to all the mandatory requirements as per the rating program. If it is able to meet all the mandatory, the project can actually proceed further. Since there is not much scope of, for example, if you take a site mandatory requirement 2, that is erosion control, topsoil preservation or erosion control measures will not be happening at the site level. So what we advise is, project can document the best practices from the day when it registers on the actual site conditions. So this is actually a procedure that the projects can follow for the existing residential projects and submit for the documentation. If projects face any clarification, they can always come to IGBC team, and IGBC team will actually handhold such projects to enable them to address their queries and get their desired rating levels. The third query that normally we see in our project documents is, will permanent vegetated areas over built structures or built surfaces, namely extended basements, terrace gardens, meet the intent of natural vegetation credit in the site? please go back to the intent of this particular credit. That is SSP credit number 2, natural vegetation. Here the intent is to minimize disturbance to the site to reduce long-term environmental impacts. So the much broader goal of this particular credit is not to disturb the earth in the first place, so that natural ecosystem is retained in its pristine form. This is the overall objective of this particular credit. Though software like vegetation may be developed over roof, the site disturbance has already taken place. Hence, for this particular credit, natural vegetation over ground only to be considered. So many projects actually feel that even though they actually propose their vegetation over roofs is not counted under natural vegetation. What we actually recommend is please do not bother, because such vertical landscape or roof gardens which are on the over the build structures are addressed under landscape credit in the water. So even though they must have taken a very great initiative of going for a vegetation over roof, it is addressed in our rating program. And this particular query, clarity over roof and non-roof, is actually to be elaborated, because many projects still have slight doubts when they have got multiple roof levels. For example, if you see this particular sketch illustration here, they have given 4 different cases. You are seeing case 1 with a non-roof and having 2 basements. In the case number 2 is having basement extended from the building and is actually adjoined to the ground level. In the case number 3, there is no basements. Directly the non-roof is, the ground level is touching the ground floor. There is no basements. In the case number 4, the basement roof is extending to the ground level. And also if you see, there are multiple projections from the building side. Here, how we define a roof and what are the areas to be considered a roof A and what are the areas to be considered a non-roof is very important. And even if you see the rating programs, it is actually accordingly evaluated. In the case of roof, we define any roof surface which is exposed to the sky, and such roofs can actually follow simple SRA values of 78 and above, or they can actually alternately prefer a combination of vegetation or albedo materials. In the case of roof B, even though it is actually a part of roof, and if you see, sometimes you actually see as a podium. In the case of case 2 and case 3, it is actually coming in different levels. In the case of case 2, roof B, which is acting as a podium, since normally we actually circulate in the areas, so we prefer to go for lower SRA materials. And also such roofs can be addressed through grid pavers, grass pavers, or go for lower SRA values between 29 and 69. If you see case number 3, even though there are 2 projections, roof A and roof B on the right hand side, roof B is also recommended to have lower SRA values, because such values will actually affect the occupants who are actually in the building, whereas the top surface of the roof A can actually always go for higher SRAs. And coming to the non-roof clarity, whatever is present on the ground level, which is indicated in the pink color, that we actually defining as a non-roof areas. Any impervious area which is in contact with the ground and exposed to the sky, example you can call as surface parking layouts, the walkways, the pathways, the project can actually opt for grass pavers, grid pavers for this particular materials. If you got a paving materials, you can choose materials which having a SRA value of 29 and 69. Please note, if you got a podium surfaces, functional areas such as driveways, ramps can be excluded. Whereas when you have these on the non-roof areas, these to be addressed in a different way. You can preferably go for a different materials or tree cover to address these non-roof areas. So this is the clarity we want to give with respect to the roof and non-roof which actually come into our projects. The third, another query that we actually come across is projects having landscape elements such as pergolas. Pergolas being an aesthetic element of a building, will not be counted under heat island effect roof calculations. However, pergolas having a permanent vegetation over it or covered with another material over it can be considered to address heat island effect roof. One more query that we normally come across is projects having swimming pools over the roof with wooden decks. In that case, since a swimming pool and wooden decks fall under functional areas, these can be extended similar to what we exclude as the service areas. If project proposes any artificial lawns over the roof, then in that case, the project will not meet the intent of the heat island effect roof. So this should be noted by the project teams. However, these elements, if any other element apart from these things, if are there, they can always write to us, and we can free to elaborate on the alternate solutions that project can actually adopt. We would like to share some guidelines that we actually normally come across in the calculations. For example, in the case of landscape water requirement, many projects actually submit so many different calculations. Example, they will submit evaporate transportations, landscape species water requirements depending on different plant species, whereas we want to make it very much simpler. For example, if you are arriving at a landscape water requirement, we recommend to go for simple thumb rule of 6 to 8 liters per square meter for a landscape requirement area. Please note, it is irrespective of the plant species, water requirement should be arrived at, and also this should be met for the first year. Projects who actually normally claim that in the total landscape area, say for example you got 1000 square meter of area, in which 90% is drought tolerant species and 10% is turf species, and the project normally claims that since they are proposing drought tolerant species, there is no water requirement. However, for the meeting this particular requirement, for the first year, project need to prepare the water requirement calculation for entire landscape requirement. So only after first or second year, projects can actually go for that lower water requirements. Coming to the second number, that is organic waste and garden waste. In our reference page, we have mentioned that products can actually take a default value of 0.25 kg per person in a dwelling unit. It actually includes both organic waste and garden waste calculations. However, if project has a larger garden waste and garden areas, in such cases, project can actually voluntarily provide the actual details and can arrive at the figure and propose required organic waste converters or vermicomposting option, or go for compost for a lower residential buildings. So this is what we want to give some options here. If, and this is actually, we are also open to stakeholders like you. If you are going to suggest a better way, we can actually always take your suggestions as well. The third query that we actually want to address is occupancy numbers for the dwelling units. For the first 2 bedrooms, always we consider 4 persons as occupancy. For the additional 1 bedroom, you always take 1 person. That is, for the 2 bedroom it is 4 numbers. For the 3 bedroom it will be 5 persons. For a 4 bedroom it will be 6 persons. For the calculation purpose only. The actual number of persons can vary, whereas for the calculation purpose you want to be very specific with these occupancy numbers in your water calculations and your organic waste calculations, and also solar water calculation when you arrive at. Coming to the fourth guidelines, that is porosity factor and percolation rates, which are more important in rainwater harvesting calculations. Here, when you take a rainwater harvesting of 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter size, that is 1 cubic meter volume, it is actually formed with the layers of gravel and sand. Hence, what we are saying is the actual percentage of water is only 60%. Hence, when you arrive at the rainwater harvesting pit size, please multiply a porosity factor of 0.6 to arrive at the actual volume of rainwater harvesting we capture in the roof and non-roof runoff. So that is one of the suggestions we actually want to do when you calculate the number of pits. Whereas percolation rate, it actually depends on the type of soil which we are actually proposing. It actually varies from city to city, location to location. Hence, for the precipitated projects, we recommend to go for 1 cubic meter per hour as percolation rate for your projects for calculation purpose. Whereas for certification projects need to arrive the percolation rate when they do the soil test report, and actual percolation to be considered. So this is also one of the suggestions we would like to make, so that projects can actually give us a correct rainwater harvesting calculations for their projects. There is one more important information that we want to share is M factor. Projects who are actually attempting a prescriptive route in energy, and when they submit the SHGC, that is solar heat gain coefficient of a glass, if they are falling short to meet the prescribed IGBC U value, they can actually alternately refer ECBC M factor values under 4.3 table, which very clearly states, gives the M factor for both vertical and horizontal overhangs. That means if project has got a shading devices, they can take a benefit of that. So considering the SHGC of your glass proposed by the given by the manufacturer, you can actually arrive at the effective SHGC by dividing your SHGC of the glass by M factor. This M factor normally varies with respect to the orientation of your tower. So for east, west, north, south, it will actually not the same. So you need to check and arrive at the effective SHGC to meet your energy prescriptive mandatory requirement, as well as you can actually even meet the credit points under glazing. Another very important query that we normally come across every time is hybrid DG sets are widely available in the market. We have introduced this credit as stakeholders like you felt that we need to raise a bar. We are aware that there is an issue on availability of biodiesels, but the larger intent was to create a market transformation. If you see, Government of India recently through MNRE also encouraged biodiesels. Since there is a board formed National Biofuel Development is already in place, therefore biodiesel is seen as a renewable source by Green Homes Committee. So this has actually given a market transformation, and if you see as of today, there are manufacturers like Kirloskar, Cummins, Caterpillar and Mahindra already have these units available, and of course there are in a smaller categories ranging from maybe 5 kVA to 500 kVA. So that projects who are actually wants to this particular hybrid DG set, they can actually avail these benefits. And also if you see the credit requirement, it is not the 100% requirement. Suppose you got arrived with the connected load of the project, it is only to meet 15% of the connected load for hybrid DG set requirement. So that is a very small size, and to move a different higher raise bar. So these we recommend to go the projects to go for this hybrid DG sets, and it is only credit. It is not a mandatory requirement. Coming to very important credit, that is criteria to meet fresh air ventilation. This normally projects feel it is very easy, and they got the required openings in the living spaces, and they clear this fresh air ventilation. But very important to note is, in the case of fresh air ventilation, the effective opening of a window to be considered. Example, if you have a window fully opening, for example, it is your living space has got a 100 square feet of area of a living room, and you have got a 10 square feet of opening of a window. That means you are meeting 10%. Whereas if that particular window is a fully openable window, that means fully openable, then you are meeting the threshold. Whereas your window is sliding window, then only 50%, that is that will become 5%. That means you require two sets of windows to meet the credit requirement, and that is actually with respect to space. That means you got living spaces such as living room, bedrooms. Each of the living spaces specifically should meet it, and also kitchen should meet 8% requirement. Washroom should meet 4% requirement. So what we want to say is, it is not just meeting the window sizes. The project should individually meet these thresholds to enable the occupants actually gets the benefit. So that's what we want to emphasize on the importance of this fresh air ventilation mandate requirement. The other very significant credits that we actually face issues like, will daylight factor alone meet daylighting mandate requirement? Many of the projects are doing better and better, but still we want to actually inform the actual significance, because for the new projects which are actually not meeting the documentation requirement, we want to just highlight how they can actually submit and increase their quality of submissions. In addition to daylighting template calculations that normally you submit, projects qualify very easily, whereas apart from template calculations, project need to submit the elevations of the towers indicating the angle of obstruction. This is required because to indicate the distance between the towers closer to your project. Example, suppose you got multiple towers, you need to indicate tower A to tower B, what is the distance. If it is very less distance, what happens? The neighboring tower will cast a shadow on your lower floors, and lower floors will affect by the daylight. Hence, we insist on having an angle of obstruction to be drawn from the lowest habitable floor, preferably from the sill level, to the neighboring towers or your adjacent dwelling units. If project has got only single tower, projects simply declare that there are no towers in their project, are very far from their project. However, please note, when the shape of the tower itself is having some dwelling units which are shading the other portion of the living spaces, it is very important that project need to submit clear details of the particular dwelling units. Here, suppose any of the dwelling units living spaces are unable to meet the angle of obstruction, that is, which are falling below the angle of obstruction criteria, those particular dwelling units should need to show compliance through daylighting simulation meeting a simple 108 lux level. Very important, one more note that I would like to share with you is, say for example, your project has got 100 dwelling units, 99 of them are meeting daylight factor of 2 in more than 75% of the areas, whereas one dwelling unit is just meeting the threshold, that is 50% requirement. Only the project will meet the mandatory requirement. They will not be able to meet the credit requirement. So what we insist is, when they do the calculations, they should arrive at the correct figure, and the points will be avoided based on the lowest threshold that they meet. This we want to make it very clear in the daylight factor calculations. So any questions that you may have, I would like to address now. One of the interesting questions once again from Namrata is that, is there any standardization to determine the occupancy of each tenement? Example, for 1 BHK, occupancy is 4. Is it correct? See, what I said is, for 2 BHK, we normally take 4 as the correct figure. If it is 1 BHK, we can actually take 2 persons for for the calculation purpose. If it is more than 2 bedroom, you can always add 1% for each bedroom increment. That's what I want to give a correction here, because for 1 bedroom it is very difficult to take 4 persons. One more query that Monica Kothari is raising is, what about purchase invoices of paint, water fixtures, etc. for existing buildings which have been What about purchase invoice of paint, water fixtures, etc. for existing buildings which have been constructed more than 5 years before? Do we still have to provide these, and just a declaration letter will do? What we feel is, as I told you before also, for the existing residential projects, please consider the date which the project registers. Whatever available, they can document us. If the project is able to provide best practices, that is actually ensure that we can actually award the rating based on the best practice that they follow from the day they register the project. Even I want to add one more line for the bedrooms. We are actually giving these numbers to ensure that projects calculations across all the projects will be same, and we can compare apple to apple comparison. For the existing residential projects, we want to suggest that when they carry the feasibility study of such projects, even that report can be shared. And if you, for example, if you take water fixtures, the flow rates of the taps can be simply be efficient by just adding a simple aerator. Whereas purchase invoice like paint is actually not required, because when they add a best practice, like when they want to go for a green house, definitely they're going to have this green paints in mind, right? The paints which are having low volatile organic compounds. That itself is sufficient when we rate the existing residential projects. And in those cases, when we visit the project, that is actually itself sufficient to meet the intent, and we actually verify and clear it. Normally we actually don't push for a purchase invoice in those cases. One more query that Monica Kothari wants to raise is, what about metal decks on roofs? Can we exclude these too? As I told you, if the metal decks acts as a functional requirement, I am not aware what actually this design proposal is. If this is a functional element, in that case it can be excluded. Yeah, Mr. Dayanand Murugan was saying projections are reported as roof. We feel providing SRA finish will provide visual discomfort. Further projections, example shading devices treating such projection as roof is difficult to meet. What we actually address is the same thing. What we're saying is we should not go for higher SIF for these roofs. What we're going to say is you can actually address these things with a much different alternatives for very, very simple lower SRA finishes starting from 28. I feel that whatever materials you use will actually fall under the category of 29 and 69 category. Oh, there is a query from Yusuf Turab. If soil test is not available, is there a worst case scenario thumb rule we can use to show rainwater harvesting capacity? In the earlier questionnaire, I told you that you can consider a percolation rate of 1 cubic meter per hour as for the calculation purpose only, to show the rainwater harvesting correctly, and also arrive at your rainwater harvesting capacities for your project. Normally, if you take example of Bombay, MOF has actually given a thumb rule that it will actually vary from 1 cubic meter to 30 cubic meter per hour in just a simple 1 hour duration. That means it is unable to clear on this values, because it actually depends on the actual site location perspective. Malti Gupta says, can you elaborate more on the porosity factor and M factor? See, when I told you about porosity factor, what I'm saying is, you got a harvesting pit. Example, what I said is, if the top dimension is 1 by 1 and the depth is 1, that is total. The total volume that it can take is 1 cubic meter. Whereas the actual volume of water is only 60%, because it is a combination of multiple layers, like your gravel, your sand. Hence, when you arrive at the harvesting pit size, 1 cubic meter should be multiplied with 0.6. That is the porosity factor should be considered default. So the actual volume that you will get is 60%. So for example, you got 100 cubic meter of required to be runoff to be captured. So you should require number of pits will be accordingly, you should adjust. And this porosity factor should also be considered. What we told about M factor is, many projects have overhangs for their projects, but they actually never consider in their designs. Mostly when they come to prescriptive path, because I think this is addressed in the simulation path, but we would like to highlight only for the prescriptive path, because projects feel they are actually not meeting the SGC, and they will actually lose the points with respect to the SGC values. So what we feel is, when they consider this M factor, they will be able to meet the required thresholds for the mandatory, as well as they may get additional points on the credit systems as per Annexure 2. Hence, we want to help the project teams and include this M factor calculations here. Mr. Ellavarsan, what he was saying is, could you please clarify the ventilation requirements for VRV systems? Here, I would like to bring one more clarity with respect to air conditioning building and a non-air conditioning building. In homes, what we said is, irrespective whether it is a centralized AC or non-air conditioning building, we said that if it is a non-AC, that non-air conditioning building, that means even though it has got a unitary AC, it can be a VR system or it can have a split units. Projects need to provide a fresh air opening in their living spaces. We consider a building fully air conditioned only if it is centralized AC. If it is not a centralized AC, projects need to meet the thresholds mentioned as per the fresh air ventilation criteria. One more query that Kritika Subramanian has raised is, can we exclude clubhouse from the scope of certification, specifically because it doesn't meet daylight and ventilation requirements? Yes, it's absolutely, I agree with you also, but as on today, since version 2 has been developed with help of you, stakeholders like you, we felt that as on today we keep it, but we can take call for a version 3, because when we exclude any portion of it from the building, we should have subsequent remedies also, because most of the projects have been hiding this clubhouse in their projects. When we call a entire project green, because when you are giving rating, it is not only for the tower, we are giving for the entire space. It can be having multiple different blocks as well, which will be acting as amenity spaces, and clubhouse being a unique part in it, and we would like to address clubhouse also in the version 2. Whereas in version 3, we will once again take call from all the stakeholders like you, and accordingly we will take a call on whether it will be added as a requirement in daylighting and ventilation criteria. One more doubt that Kritika Subramanian is raising is, there is no authentic data available for 18 days. can IGBC suggest any website from where this data can be sourced? I think you must be remembering that we have launched IGBC Green NB because we know that there are many cities have got different rain days, and it is for some cities it is not available. We also will come up with some addendum so that for certain cities we can actually come up with some rainy days. If the rainfall data is not available, we can actually pick and choose those rainy days. But if you see our template itself, we have mentioned that if there are no rainy days available, we can take a default of 15 rainy days for a calculation purpose. But definitely we will work with you and also come up with this particular figure for all the cities as much as possible. If it is data not available also, we will work out with respect to the rainfall data range, we will arrive at this figure. One more doubt that Malti Gupta is raising is,